Hey everybody, Lewis here, Ropeadope TV, live from East Philadelphia. We are relaxing down at the Ropeadope Store and we have special guests yet again.
Woo!
This time very excited to welcome Andrew and Tim.
Hey, Seven.
From
Hey, Lewis.
Brooklyn.
Jesus
Oh, yeah.
on the Mainline.
Jesus on the Mainline.
Jesus on the Mainline, one of my favorite, perhaps my favorite band name of all time. On the Mainline, where did we pick that from?
Jesus on the Mainline it's of course a famous song, and I was looking for a new name for a project when we first began, and I had one of those days where I was on SoundCloud surfing around listening to new music, and I was in a particular area of inspiration where I wanted to get my hands on a ton of good music, or just a ton of music for that matter, because there are pockets of time when you get really into your own creative aspirations and you forget to look at the larger picture of what else is out there. And for one reason or another, versions of that song kept popping up on my SoundCloud feed.
So fill me in. Clueless, that person that I am. Jesus on the Mainline, the song.
Yeah, it's a famous gospel tune.
It's a famous gospel tune.
Yeah. And
now I know, and now I may be the last person to know.
It's a beautiful song also, and I heard there's a famous version of Aretha singing it when she was 18, and I heard another couple not so fancy versions, and the one version that came across was a version by like an indie Brooklyn band. It sounded so wildly different, and I was just kind of surprised that through whatever algorithm that SoundCloud was throwing at me, that I was getting all these different versions of the song. Nice. And it stuck.
So is there is it like a traditional song, do you think?
Yeah, it's like
okay. So we can find a public domain version and
definitely
lead off this show with that. We've all learned something. I've learned something already.
It's nice.
Do you think in the song, what does On the Mainline reference? That was my curious thing.
Oh, I think it's talking about like going back to the early days of telephone. Like,
on the Mainline.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah,
okay,
it's
not a train reference, but maybe a.
It's not, but people.
Direct to.
Yeah, it's Jesus on the Mainline. Call him up and tell him what you want. If you're sick and can't get well, tell him what you want.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. So. But it's cool. People that don't, a lot of people haven't heard the song, don't know anything about the tune, and for those people, like that combination of words, Jesus on the Mainline, is it a train? Is it like what's the deal?
I want to know more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
which
piques my interest right away.
That's actually part of the reason that the name really kind of did stick, is that because of everybody's either deep understanding of that song or their complete lack of it, they created their own version of meaning for what that means. And I know people that say, well, no, that means something else to me. And that's kind of what I like about where we started off, is that musically speaking, we could be many different things, but people took it as whatever they wanted it to be to them.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. They can own it.
They can own it, yeah.
So I always start out the show with where we met, because I have a lot of intriguing stories. But the more folks, the older I get, and the more people are on the label I don't remember. So,
well, I think Tim has actually got the interesting story there, but I met you on FaceTime for the first time. This is the first time we've been in the same room.
Right, but there has to be a like, how did we connect? You didn't just like go through the record label directory and get to R.
Tim's got the interesting story
there. We first connected, or I had connected with Ropeadope years ago when I was in college. I did an internship at a label that had a label called Artemis Records.
Artemis Records, here we go.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Danny Goldberg, right?
Danny Goldberg and Daniel Glass.
There you go.
And when I just did like a summer internship there, because I was like, well, I don't know, shit, I got to do something this summer, and I think I kind of knew I wanted to be a musician, but I was like, I should learn a thing or two about the record business. And over the course of that summer, I think Artemis, I was either like giving some office space to Ropeadope at the time, was doing some like label services stuff.
Artemis was in a deal to purchase Ropeadope.
That was what I thought, but I didn't. You know, I was a peon, so I didn't.
And then the
know
words
what.
train wreck soon followed.
It sure did. Yeah.
That's like 2004, maybe 2005. Mm-hmm. Right. So this would be very close to just before when I purchased Ropeadope.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So those were trying times in the music business. Mm-hmm. Danny Goldberg's, from what I understand, his experience at that point in the music business was a bit of a train wreck. And then enter things like venture capitalists and hedge funds, and then catalog acquisition, all kinds of interesting words that have nothing to fucking do with music entered the story. A lot of artists got hurt and a lot of labels got hurt, and then Ropeadope rose from the ashes of that. But sorry, fill in that part of the history.
I mean, there was definitely, as somebody that was like, I mean, just a fly on the wall, essentially. But it wasn't that, you know, that environment. There weren't a ton of people, but, it was a full office. But, somebody's just a fly on the wall. There was definitely a lot of just things happening. There were people with offices back in the back that would emerge once a day, and it was like, who is that?
There was another partner, right? Like some big dude.
There was a finance guy.
Yeah, there was
that was... so there was a lot of stuff going around, but there were a couple things musically. As somebody that only ever wanted to be a musician, didn't really have any interest in getting on the label side of things, there were a couple things musically that came out of that. One of which was that at that time, Danny Goldberg started working with Steve Earle, and that was the first time I ever discovered Steve Earle.
Oh man!
And got to meet him, and that was like. I mean, I was way into all country Americana and that kind of stuff at that time.
What record was Steve Earle on at that point?
Revolution Starts Now.
Wow.
Man.
Wow.
And then like starting from there and going backwards, just boom. And another thing, really, the two highlights of that era of all of the different music that they had acquired rights to, everything else. The other stuff that was just like the mind blower at that time was Annibalus, Dirty Dozen Brass Band. Tin Hat Trio,
right? Tin Hat Trio.
Yeah, and those were like,
and there was a Charlie Hunter record in that mix.
There was a Charlie Hunter record.
Well, was it Friends Seen and Unseen? Yeah, there were 5 titles that we had.
Yeah, and there was a couple like artists. There was a couple like mixtape. That's like there was like a sampler or something that I maybe remember, and I don't know if there was something that had come from
Mix for the Six.
Yeah, might have been
something like that.
But of course, there were copies of Philadelphia Experiment that were floating around and everything. So that was my first exposure to the record label. And then fast forward a whole bunch of years of playing in a bunch of different bands and doing a bunch of different, going to school and everything, and moving to New York City, getting in this other band, and getting into a scene that involved a lot of people that had moved to New York to study jazz and were playing in jazz and R&B influenced bands, and being around a lot of horn players. Sort of started like hearing about different people that had records out on Ropeadope. And it was like Michael Cammers and
Michael Cammers.
Yeah,
wonderful human.
Yeah, and
MK Groove Orchestra.
Yeah, MK Groove Orchestra. I saw on a Facebook post that he had a new record that was coming out a couple years ago on Ropeadope, and I was like, man, that is awesome. And that's a trip, and reached out to a few people and reached out to you. And
so you probably referenced Michael in the first.
I referenced Michael and I referenced Kaylin Lister when I first reached out.
Wonderful person as well, with very fancy hats.
So there was like it was this weird coming back around and interacting with a bunch of Ropeadope artists that are current to right now, that are folks that are based in New York.
Great.
And thinking. What we do is a little different than a bunch of the stuff, but there are overlaps, and just maybe it'd be something you'd be willing to check out. And here we are. So
yeah,
it was weird.
We do speak about this in interviews and on Ropeadope TV about how I do it. Not to like, it's not, the interview's not about me, but it just quickly is like people who connect with people is the most important thing. The music flows from there. But when somebody
Totally.
says Michael Kammer, I'm a friend of Michael Kammer's, then I'm listening. So that's a start, and it's not like I'm not listening to a lot of stuff. It's like that's an interesting.
Of
it's
course.
it's good to bring that in with the how we met thing.
Yeah,
because
totally.
that explains the threads.
Well,
that connect everything.
The stuff
that
from
I'm
like
tapping into.
Yeah, I mean the stuff from way back is interesting, but you know the thing that I think actually kind of like that connected us really now was more that we were kind of in a scene with folks that are Ropeadope like we're on a scene with folks that are artists on the label right now was kind of what actually
I do want to say
together.
real quick that Anabolus record, I'm not even sure why I did this, but I re-released it in like 2010 or 2011, and the press was like, really? You're going to re-release a record 5 years later?
It's a great record.
I can't remember. There was a reason at the time, but it was, it was kind of, people were kind of laughing.
Yeah.
But the funny part was that Anabolus they weren't really communicating with each other.
Interesting.
So then the re-release came out, and they all kind of had to sort of reconnect and talk to each other, and then and kind of put things back together.
I love that record.
So let's talk about this. You got music coming up. You got a record coming out on Ropeadope.
Yeah.
Jesus on the Mainline. The title is?
It's called The Morning Bell.
The Morning Bell.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to just kind of take it and tell me a little bit about, how does the writing process happen? You're co-composing and who's playing what?
Well, that's a big question. There's a lot of people on this record, and that's kind of the nature of the band. Since at our smallest incarnation, we're still 12 people, and our largest, it's 15 or 16.
Seriously?
Oh yeah. Wow. Through every gig and every small tour we've done, it's been that many people. Wow. And
I was expecting 13, but again with the Jesus.
Well, there might be like 25 people involved with actually the making of this record.
Amazing.
And that's at the largest end, but at the smallest end, it really came from Tim and I spending around 11 months, give or take a month, writing every day, and almost every day, I should say.
Do you want to talk about that process?
Yeah, I do, because it's coming from my perspective, which is writing for big band. It's my master's degree is in jazz composition, and most of the large ensemble stuff I had ever done up to this point was writing for Afro-Cuban big band, which is basically like, hey, I need this chart on Thursday. Here's what it pays, and I sit down at finale and go nuts for 12 hours.
Wow.
So to take that singular process and go to a partnership which was purposely drawn out over a period of time was a total 180 for me, and one that was like very, very artistically stimulating, because instead of just being the one guy who's responsible for the entire direction of something, which can be great, all of a sudden I have this the 100% partner that we're a complete sounding board for. I mean, it's co-writing in the most basic sense, where all of our ideas are being expressed and bounced off of and worked through. I mean, we wrote maybe like 30 tunes for the whole record, of which we recorded a certain number, and of which we're releasing a certain number. So
starting on a given instrument for each of you?
It changed
the
on
writing
everything.
process?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like mostly guitar player, and I mean Andy's first instrument is trumpet, but he's also a keys player. So like the actual like kind of songwriting, co-writing sessions a lot of times would be, I would kind of mostly have a guitar, and Andy would mostly have this little teeny like Casio.
Yeah, like the worst keyboard you could possibly find. It's the most fun to write on.
Well, then it's always going to sound better.
Yeah, totally. But it's about keeping to keep the songs as interesting as we felt like we could, like keeping the limitations of like, let's not have something where let's not do this on a MIDI controller plugged into a computer that has unlimited sounds. Like literally, let's just make sure this is a good melody. Like
to the root, yeah.
Just get right to that,
So that's the difference for you. In a sense,
because normally I'm ready to go like with the entire orchestra in synth city, because you never know if you're gonna have to give that to you know, some other professional band leader and he needs a reference track for the band or something like that. So just getting back to the basics of writing music, which is writing an interesting melody that you can sing over and over and over and over again. And I think we really did hit the mark on everything, where we got these pretty songs. And from there, we did build out the songs, you know, on our various, you know, digital workstations, because we have such a great large group of people that, and we were talking about this earlier, how it'd be a waste not to utilize everybody's talent. You know, there's people in the band that play trombone and also sing their ass off, and there's people that you know, play guitar and know the 30,000 different guitar tones that are out there.
Wow.
So we really tried to build off of these songs that we wrote, these basic songs, instrumentally speaking, and then let the arrangements flow out of that. And then by the time we got to the studio, it was almost that we had made the record before we made the record. So there was very little left to chance when we got to basic tracking. And then all these little happy accidents get to happen where you're like, I wouldn't have thought of that. Let's go with that instead.
Leaving the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I heard, you know, listening in on a conversation with you and Fabian earlier about the process. The process in the studio and how, like, what is that for different artists, especially in different styles of music. And you know, unlike some of the different you know, jazz artists and stuff, we had a really clear idea of like what things were going to sound like. We had charts written for the horn players. Wow. We had you know, lead sheets written out for some of the guys that are like rhythm section to just follow, and like we had, you know, BPMs set out, so we had like a good idea of what stuff was going to sound like. But then even at that, the tunes ended up sounding different than we thought that they did, because you just, unless you're in a big beautiful studio with a killing drummer and a great bass player and everything, like you're never until you do that, like, and you commit to like, this is what our record is gonna sound like, you don't know, you can't make that happen you know, in a little home studio plugging stuff in. So it's like we didn't know what the identity of the record was gonna be until we made it.
Yeah,
you know?
the Cats
so
really did like take the basics and take it to another level.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, and just to reference the conversation from earlier was about the risk and there's a certain letting go.
Yeah.
And
man, that was
a courageous thing that musicians do on a regular basis, to go in and take that leap. That's
very, very tough, especially when we had been writing and pre-production for so long. I mean, it was a genuine struggle for me to let the Cats have this moment unto themselves, because we had struggled with the decisions so far up to that point. But I remember the singular moment when I was like, let go, and everything kind of coalesced after that, and it was a beautiful moment for me personally. But to watch everything unfold after that, I think we really ended up with a product that we were incredibly happy with.
Yeah. And we're coming at it from a real like collaborative place to begin with, and you kind of get used to a certain mode of collaborative working, and then all, like, when we were tracking out the record, it was this whole other step into a separate like collaborative thing that was happening. A lot of little collaborative choices, like all at once in real time, and it was kind of like, oh my god, you know, like seeing people that have, you know, studied bass their whole life and drums their whole life and all that, taking this idea of like, well, this is kind of what the groove is, this is kind of what the idea is, and making it like what it should be is like, it's scary, because you're sitting there and you're on the clock in the studio and there's all these people around and all this stuff, but then it happens, you get somebody who's great at what they do and you just let them do it, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah. But the biggest thing is it's you have to what I'm hearing is you have your vision.
Yeah.
And then you're lost in your vision. It's like you're looking at the woods and the path, and you're like, that's where I want to be on the top of the mountain. Then you go in.
Yeah.
And you can't see the top the whole time.
Yeah.
Until you come out, and you're hoping that you came out in the place that you were eyeing up in the first place.
Yeah.
Man.
And you may or may not, but you get up there and you're like, okay.
Yeah,
Wow,
sometimes
you
your
don't know
camera's
what
working.
the view's gonna be.
Yeah,
you don't know what it's even gonna look like up there.
Right,
you just and like you gotta work with you know that you're not gonna get there by yourself. And
takes a lot of faith.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a special thing
Yeah.
about. There you go. There you go. That's two. Is that only two? Yeah. A lot of faith, and I think that that's something that you know, just speaking to the audience, you know, viewers for a second is just, you know, this is something that musicians do on a regular basis, and in a lot of ways we all do to a certain extent, but we all have somewhat drifted away from it, and you know, I respect the courage that it takes to be a musician and to put something out in the world when you don't know what it's going to sound like, let alone now we still have to get to release day.
Yeah.
And we have to put it out to the larger audience and see what people say about it. You know, it's a lot of risk. So my respect.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks.
Also, my respect for. Can we go around the room? Is this the most formidable beard on Ropeadope TV so far? Is it? Yeah, I think so.
It's a great beard.
I think so. Yeah. So. One other question that came up when you were talking about that, and you may have two different answers for this, but is there a particular songwriting duo that you find, you know, that you go to as a well of inspiration, not just for their music, but also for just kind of like their vibe and their dedication or anything? Is there somebody, or is it one songwriter?
I definitely. I mean, I have a few like, you know, sort of collaborations. Not necessarily just in duos. I think like the first one that comes to mind as a duo is Patterson Hood and Mike Cooley from the Drive By Truckers.
There you go.
And it even gets extended further. My like favorite of their body of work was when Jason Isbell was also in the band, and the three of them. I mean, it was like they had three guys that were fully capable of carrying the songwriting burden, but they were all they're at such elite talent level that they could have done it themselves, but they all knew that they could work together and create something even better. Isbell does his own solo thing now, but with those two guys in particular, it's a really interesting thing because their tunes, they both sing individually, and there are tunes that definitely have more of a vibe of one of them and more of a vibe of the other one, but they can't their identity, like you can't strip the identity apart. It's always it's very singular, and they've been at it for 25 years.
Yeah,
just chipping at it.
It's a thing. Yeah,
it's amazing, and it's I have no idea. I don't even think that they would be able to tell you how exactly they have nailed it down. I don't even think that they would say that they've nailed it down, probably, but it's like they just keep working at it, So that's the first one.
And that vibe is there.
Yeah.
Andrew, how about you?
I mean, I don't have a whole lot of reference for that because all my partnership, like I had another writing partnership once in my life that was very different collaboratively, and
we'll edit that out.
Yeah.
No, we won't.
And a lot of my life has been spent like transcribing Clifford Brown solos and learning that and learning how to blow on standards, or how to write a big band tune like Micah Benny would or Maria Schneider might. So when I came to this particular partnership, and it was a very it didn't happen by chance. Like we planned on doing it like this. It was all like kind of new to me to kind of say like, I have a really strong opinion about this, and you have a really strong opinion about it. Now, how do we make that happen? And there were not many times when we had discussions that didn't end in a better musical product. I mean, I can't remember if we even had one argument over a melody or a song or a lyric or something like that that didn't eventually work itself out. We definitely had, like, you know, strong opinions about a lot of stuff, but, you know, if that wasn't the norm for other songwriters out there, then I wouldn't know, you know.
Well, that's it. That's
yeah. It just
the vibe.
clicked with us, and nice. I also was very influenced by Jason Isbell right before this record, but that was another, like, you know, he turned me on to the Truckers and to Isbell.
Gotcha. So we're getting close here. Just want to say May 19th.
May 19th.
Jesus on the Mainline. And people can...
You're going to want to go to listentothemainline.com and sign up for updates on the release date. And also May 20th, you'll be able to see us at the Mercury Lounge in New York City. So May 19th is the release. May 20th at Mercury Lounge, and listentothemainline.com to sign up for news.
And the record is The Morning Bell and hashtag The Morning Bell, you know?
You guys, you just carried me on that one. I'm supposed to be the one marketing this thing. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lewis.
Yeah, man.
You will.